Ayo, it's AyoChikiMoko here bringing you another Apex Legends video. Today we're going to be breaking down Bangalore, and I have been so pumped to put out this video for all you Bangalore mains out there. And to start this video off, I'm going to be first breaking down Bangalore's abilities down to the millisecond while comparing them to other legends to see how she stands in the current meta of Apex. And then for those of you who aren't Bangalore mains, don't stress, I got you covered too. At the end of the video, I'm going to get into who is a good counter for Bangalore, along with who Bangalore is a good counter for. And seriously, this game is a huge surprise to me, so I know you Bangalore mains out there are going to want to stick around to hear who it is. But with that, I'm AyoChikiMoko, and if this is your first time on the channel, I want to say welcome, and I hope you come back again, so I can help you on your journey becoming the baddest legend to walk the Outlands. And you already know how to do that, so let's get into the video. So let's start with some background for Bangalore to see how she got to where she stands in the meta of Apex. And actually, she hasn't seen any changes in the last 2 seasons, and before that she only received 2 other changes. However, the rumor going around is that you Bangalore mains are finally going to get the time and the shine you guys have been deserving ever since launch. She has always been, in my opinion, one of the more higher tier legends, even if the only thing the developers have done is nerf her double time and add a minor buff to her ultimate back in October of 2019, increasing her damage from 20 to 40. And honestly, that just goes to show how balanced Bangalore is in meta of Apex. But is a balanced legend what Apex needs? Well, of course, but I think the developers know that balanced meta is good for the game, but just simple reworks or little changes here and there can really spice up the individual player experience, especially for those players who chose to main that particular legend for either the lore or the simple mechanics around that legend that fits that player's playstyle. And the best example of how I know the developers know this is what they recently did with Lifeline in her passive. Though Lifeline was equally as balanced as Bangalore and really needed no buffs due to the stats showing that Lifeline was still top tier in many categories from pick and win rate and her kill to death ratio. But the developers still felt as though she had lost her unique shine that she once had when Apex first released. And I know a lot of you Bangalore mains are probably shaking your head right now agreeing with that statement in the terms for Bangalore. But for now, in Season 5, we're going to take a look at her initial stats, and then take a look at what exactly makes her one of the best legends for repositioning. And starting off, a good Bangalore main will always have smoke for the ready for her and her team when the situation calls for it, from reviving to repositioning, then blinding the enemy so you can use the zipline confidently. Pairing Bangalore with one of the other legends that are also meant to help you reposition, such as the Appliance or the Drug Addict, this should ensure that you and your team always have positional advantage over all other teams. And what exactly makes this possible is her tactical, and what we end up seeing is that it's described as being able to fire a high velocity smoke canister that explodes into a smoke wall on impact. So let's first dive into what exactly the smoke wall is. It's a 32 long by 18 meter wide by 6 meter tall wall that has the potential of dealing 10 damage with each of the 3 canisters. And now we're going to take a look at how long it takes to fire one single canister. And then it takes 0.58 seconds to launch a single canister, and then it takes 0.8 seconds to release the smoke once the canister has hit the ground or the wall, and then after that it takes another 0.58 seconds to fully disperse all the smoke, giving us a total time of 2.0 seconds. And honestly, it feels like you can fire those canisters just about anywhere, but from my testing it does seem like there's a max distance of about 200 meters, aiming the launcher at about 35 degrees from the horizon. The smoke also lasts about 20 seconds and it has a 33-second cooldown. And then with a gold helmet, we see that it takes the tactical all the way down to 26 seconds. And something to note is currently with Bangalore, when you fire a canister, it creates a wall horizontal from yourself. But something else to keep in the back of your mind is that when you're aiming your launcher, remember that the canisters, when they hit the ground or the wall, they will actually bounce. And when they hit the wall, they actually bounce outwards of a max distance of 5 meters and a total of 6 meters downwards. Why does this matter? This matters because in some situations where you're wanting to smoke out an area that's above you, this will require you to arc the canister straight up into the air to lob it on top of the building. Because if you aim for the edge, you actually end up seeing that the smoke gets nowhere on top of that building due to the fact that the canisters fall downwards. But all it really is that you just need to make sure that you take into account that the canisters drop after initial contact. Now, something else to note, if you hold onto your tactical button or key, you end up seeing that you're actually able to hold your launcher out and aim exactly where you want the smoke to go. And while aiming your launcher, you're actually able to fire your weapon, aim down sights, and throw grenades. However, once you select your tactical, there is no direct way to cancel it. But if you do start a heal animation, such as a syringe or a shield cell, or holster your weapon and then perform a melee, this will actually cancel the launcher animation. And some more situational things I also found is that jumping onto a zip line or climbing up a building will also cancel the tactical. Okay, now we're going to move into the section about comparing Bangalore's tactical to other legends in order to see how she stacks up against other legends who have similar utility in their their kit. And what we end up seeing is that there's only one other legend that sort of has repositional capability with their tactical, and that is Gibraltar, in the sense that he can provide cover in order to help his team reposition. However, realistically, the repositional potential is very slim due to how little of an area his shield actually covers. So it's very situational, and honestly you don't want to be using Gibby's shield in this way very often due to the fact that Gibby's entire kit is in his bubble, and throwing around just to reposition is literally wasting everything that Gibby brings to the table. So taking that into account, we see that Bangalore is really one of the only legends that has repositional capability in her tactical. But comparing Gibby's tactical to Bangalore's, we end up seeing that Bangalore can send her smoke about 10 times the distance that Gibby can throw his shield, and then also her smoke covers more than 2.5 times the length in Gibby's shield. And that's also not taking into account that Bangalore has 2 of these canisters, and in most cases you aren't or shouldn't be using both of these canisters right away in order to try and reposition. Rather, to extend how much ground you can actually cover with the 2 canisters, you want to use one when initially trying to reposition in order to break line of sight initially, and then use your second canister as additional cover when the enemy gets their sights back onto you. But even when they finally do get their sights on you and they try and take some shots, that's when you activate your double time passive. And what double time is described as is when taking fire while sprinting, it makes you move faster for a brief time. And that's very vague, so let's get into what exactly her passive is. What we end up seeing is that you get a 30% movement speed boost while sprinting, which is equivalent to Octane's walking speed while he has his stem, but we'll touch more on that soon. And something else to note is that we see that you only get 2 seconds of that boost after you stop being shot at. So if you're continuously being shot at, your passive actually continuously works until they fire their last shot. And even with how simple that passive is, I truly do think double time is one of the best passives in the game, due to the fact that when you really compare it to other legends and not only their passive but their tacticals as well, it becomes very apparent that Bangalore almost has 2 tacticals that end up being so versatile in both defensive and offensive plays. And just to show how good Bangalore's passive really is, let's compare it to Apex Legends' staple meta legend, and that's Wraith. And we're going to compare it to both her passive and her new tactical. And what we end up seeing is that with Wraith's passive is that she gets information from herself from other dimensions, letting her know about being aimed at and other minor information. Compare that to Bangalore's passive, though it doesn't activate until after she's been shot at, it essentially does the same thing. It lets you know if the enemy is fired from behind you or from an angle that you weren't anticipating. It allows you to react without even really having to react, if you understand what I'm trying to say. And on top of that, Bangalore has probably one of the closest things to Wraith's ult get out of free card tactical, because that burst of speed allows you to get out of so many sticky situations without even having to hit a button. And then comparing it to Wraith's new tactical, Bangalore and Wraith have the same 30% increased movement speed, but Wraith's does last 4 seconds compared to Bangalore's 2 seconds. But we also have to take into account that Bangalore's passive still is activated whenever she's being shot at, so that time can extend all the way out to the full time that it takes to burn through a Spitfire magazine. And if you want some information about how long does it take to burn through a Spitfire magazine clip, up in the top right hand corner my dope little assistant will point you in the direction of my gun breakdown on the Spitfire. But getting back on track, another key component that makes all the difference is that Wraith's tactical now takes 1.25 seconds in order to activate. While comparing that to Bangalore's, we end up seeing that it's almost instantaneous she gets her speed boost. And unfortunately I wasn't able to pinpoint exactly how long it takes for her passive to activate due to some factors varying from bullet speed and other little things like that, but I can assure you that it's almost instantaneous. Now let's compare it to our favorite drug addict, Octane. What we end up seeing is that Octane's tactical not only has an animation to activate, but he also loses health while using his stem. However, what Octane does have over Bangalore's passive is that now with Season 5, upon activating his stem, he will negate all slowing effects that were upon Octane in that moment. And this is a really great addition to Octane's kit, and all that does is allow Octane to dictate even more of the fight in his favor. And something else to note, with Season 5, Octane's stem now affects his walking speed, meaning he's actually able to have a faster movement speed while healing. Okay, now we're going to compare Bangalore to the last movement based legends, and that's Pathfinder and Loba. First, the most notable thing against these two legends is the fact that both of their movement abilities revolve around their tactical that are both on a 30+ cooldown. However, the reason for that long cooldown is due to the fact that their tactical is superior over Bangalore's and all the other movement based legends, due to the fact that they can gain the high ground while trying to reposition. And now we're going to take a look at Bangalore's ultimate and compare it to other legends. Let me see, it's named Rolling Thunder, that of which calls in an artillery strike that slowly creeps across the landscape. Breaking down her ultimate, we see that we can throw it a max distance of about 55 meters, and it takes a total time of 7.2 seconds to call in the 6x6 roll of missiles that spin a total of 48 by 60 meter area. And then we see we have a slight delay of about 3.8 seconds before they all explode, and roughly about 52.6 seconds, giving you a total time of 16.2 1.2 seconds of breathing room for you and your team. And we see that it takes a total of 4 minutes and 30 seconds to charge your ultimate, with each ult accelerant subtracting 1 minute and 43 seconds. And for the gold helmet, we see that we'll reduce the time by 1 minute, giving us a total time of 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And with this ultimate, there's so much potential for you being able to use this in so many different situations. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to each one due to the fact that this video is already getting a little long. But one of the best utilities that I find myself using the ultimate for is allowing your team to reset and ensure that you won't be getting third party while fighting another team. And something that doesn't get talked about enough in Apex is ult management. It's a term that was first introduced to me while playing Overwatch. And the basic idea is that if you're not using your ultimate, you're wasting it. Because in the time that you choose to hold on to your ultimate, waiting for that perfect moment, you're putting both your team and yourself at a disadvantage, because you could have potentially used your ultimate 2 or 3 times within that time span that you've chosen not to even use it. But the reason I even bring it up here is because early game, if you're struggling to get those wins because you just keep getting third party over and over, Bangalore's ultimate is the ultimate thing to counter third parties and to help you and your team survive longer in every match. So if you don't have a Bloodhound or a Lifeline on your team, you should be really swooping up all the ultimate accelerants you can get so you can counter being third party so often. But talking more about late game, Bangalore's ultimate is very key due to the fact that if the opposing team has high ground or positional advantage over you, Bangalore's ult is the best way to clear out a team from that position in order to claim it for yourself. However, one of the weaknesses for Bangalore's ultimate is that the artillery shells only do 40 damage, and also the fact that they take so long to finish being called in and then finally explode, which just gives your enemies so much time to find little pockets where they won't be affected by the damage. Unlike Gibraltar's ultimate, where it's very tight and does a lot more damage and will clear out an area no matter what. But don't get it twisted, most players won't risk the chance of getting hit by one of those artillery shells due to the fact that you get slowed for a total of 7.92 seconds. And if your team is falling right behind your ultimate, using the ultimate to push more aggressively, your enemy will be a sitting duck, allowing you to turn the tide even more in your favor due to their team being a man down. And speaking of more aggressive, let's get into exactly how you should be playing Bangalore. So throughout this video, I've mainly discussed Bangalore's reposition capabilities, but a good Bangalore main has 2 entirely different frame of mind when using her abilities. For when you're playing more in a reactive playstyle, more in the way that I've discussed throughout this video in order to reposition and gain positional advantage and get out of sticky situations, but it's when those good Bangalore mains develop the skill in order to be able to change gears and begin to use both their passive and their tactical in more of an aggressive playstyle. That's when the most simplistic legend in Apex can become one of the more top tier legends. But in order for this to be accomplished, it requires what I was talking about earlier, and that's the second frame of mind. Switching from a reactive playstyle to more of a planning playstyle. Having to plan exactly when they're going to use their smoke, to having to take into account exactly what legends are on their team. Such as having a crypto and having to communicate when you're going to use your smoke so that you can blind the enemy and allow them not to shoot down the drone while your crypto is trying to EMP. Or let's say you have an Octane or a Pathfinder on your team. This allows you to shoot your smoke ahead of you in order to blind the enemy while you're trying to push them with your Octane and your Pathfinder's ultimate. And then the most obvious combination of them all, Bloodhound and Bangalore. And if you're able to have just simple communication, this allows you and your team to be completely immersed in the smoke while also being able to see the enemy with your Bloodhound's tactical. And this also works just as great with crypto, if not better. But let's also say you're queued up with randoms. You're also able to be just as aggressive just as long as you take into account whether or not you have a digital threat, whether or not your team composition can play around the smoke effectively, or if you'll be putting your team at more of a disadvantage. And we haven't even gotten to the best part of Bangalore, and that's your passive, because a good Bangalore will always be able to dictate the engagement, always be repositioning or re-engaging on the Bangalore's terms, giving the enemy absolute no time to get their thoughts together. A good Bangalore dictates the flow of battle, and though there's a couple legends who can do this a little bit better than Bangalore, that's how we're going to transition to the final part of this video, the part that we've all been waiting for, the legends that counter Bangalore, and then we're going to take a look at who exactly Bangalore counters. So good legends that counter Bangalore is first and foremost Bloodhound. His ultimate counters everything that Bangalore has to offer, from her tactical to her passive, due to the fact that when Bloodhound enters his ultimate, he gets a 30% movement speed boost, which is the exact speed of Bangalore's. The difference is that Bangalore only gets it for 2 seconds, while Bloodhound has the ability to never let you out of their sights. And another good legend that can counter Bangalore is Caustic, because he can throw his ultimate right into the smoke and push you right into the open. And if you come across either one of these legends, as a Bangalore, you do not want to use your smoke, due to the fact that you'll just be helping out the enemy more than helping your team. Alright, now it's time to get into the last section of this video, the part that I've been looking forward to the most, and that is who exactly Bangalore is a good counter for. And honestly, it is the legend that I was expecting the least of all the legends in the Apex Legend Arena, and that's Revenant. Yes, Revenant, the legend whose kit is based around being the ultimate counter for every legend. So why do I think that Bangalore is a good counter for Revenant? Well, it's actually thanks to my testing, because while I was going through all the legend interactions with Bangalore, like Watson and her ultimate destroying Bangalore's canisters, and then trying to see if you can hit Pathfinder's zipline so you can have the smoke engulf some of that zipline. But it was while I was doing these tests that I found something very odd, and that's with Revenant's tactical. And though it does affect Bangalore's tactical, it actually doesn't negate her passive. And to me, that came as a huge shock that Revenant's tactical does not cancel Bangalore's key aspect, the aspect that makes her so strong in the hands of a good player. And it was something that I honestly wasn't expecting whatsoever. I almost glazed over, if I was gonna be honest with you, because you expect that Bangalore was going to be affected the same way as any other legend. And after me trying to do some research to find if there was any information on this on the web already, I actually wasn't able to find anything. So if this is common knowledge, I do apologize in advance. However, even if it is, I would love to hear what you guys think about Revenant's tactical not affecting Bangalore's passive, because in my opinion, I definitely think it should, because now when I'm playing Bangalore, I make it my personal duty to be the one that takes down Revenant first and foremost, because honestly, without him negating Bangalore's passive, I'm able to put just as much pressure as I would on any other legend. And you'd be surprised at just how many Revenant mains you can catch off guard, because once they zone off that area with their tactical, trying to create a safe haven for themselves, here I come, not even phased by that silence orb taking them down because they have a false sense of security. And this relieves so much pressure off your entire team, knowing that they don't have to be worried about their abilities being taken away from them. But with that, we've concluded the breakdown for Bangalore and my final thoughts on our professional soldier, that she is currently a great legend. And if there is any changes coming to Bangalore like there's rumored, I hope whatever they do have in store really just polishes her kit rather than trying to change it up too much, just to show everyone exactly how great of a legend she's always been. But whatever those changes do end up being, you can know that I'll be covering them just as in depth as I have today. So be sure and hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so I can keep you up to date about everything Apex Legends related. And real quick, I do want to say thank you to all you guys watching, and if you did enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button. Like seriously, I won't be mad at you, I promise, because it lets me know that you guys are enjoying these in-depth breakdowns. And if you want more videos just like this one, breaking down any of the other legends that I've covered so far, up in the top right hand corner where my dope little assistant's pointing, he'll point you in the right direction of all my breakdowns. But with that, be sure to be the best you can be, and I'll see you in the next one.